Hey, welcome back. Last week we talked about food security and why it's becoming a growing issue. Well, today I will talk about gardening is not as expensive as you think it is. There's ways to mitigate cost. Your biggest expense is going to be the soil needed and water. After all, plants need sunlight, water, and a medium to grow in. Some people use hydroponics, which I find to be a little more tedious. I prefer the traditional way. But how can I save money? Well, number one is by finding ways to repurpose your trash and convert it into compost, which then can be used for mulch and topsoil, which will lead to the water reduction from that. Now let's go over to my composting pile. You get to see how tame the squirrel is out here. And we're right around the corner. Here's different types of composting. These right here are what you call trash can composting. Very simple. Now I also use these as rain barrels. Now when I make a new garden bed, I often lay sticks down at the bottom to save material cost. Let these become water batteries. They will break down. The plants will grow into them and take advantage of all that's trapped within that wet that's been stored. I can also burn the wood and use a little bit of the wood ash to add some material, some elements back in. You just have to be careful with that because too much will kill the plant. You see how you just have various yard waste. And here's a good example. As you see, this weeds I pulled up from the garden. There's sticks, there's leaves in there, there's bits of food, there's some newspaper in there, there's some shredded junk mail. There's toilet paper tubes, paper towel tubes. The sky's the limit in what you can break down, because as long as it doesn't have any heavy chemicals, like example, you went out and changed the car oil, as long as it doesn't even that nature, it's good. And what happens is, this is what it breaks down into. You see, it has that dark color. That tells me that it's enriched with nitrogen, because nitrogen has a color like we're seeing right now, that brownish dark. And what I do is I take from there, add this as a mulch. Not only does this save me time with weeding, but this holds its water. It's organic material, it enriches the soil, it reduces the temperature around the plant, so in hot days it reduces heat stress, which saves me from having to water as much. And if you're quite concerned about wanting to save water and you have the room available, you can always invest in a rain barrel. Because I got this from the city of Tulsa. They have a program out here that you pay like $68. You go down to the water treatment plant, you pick this up, and that holds about 50 gallons, something like that. And as a secondary effect, depending on how seeds you grow, if you grow heirlooms, you can take some heirlooms. For example, these are sunflowers, and you see how this is starting to from seeds. Well, here's the thing. Let me just show you here. You don't want plant material in for seeds. This is fine, somebody would for this. But you see how I'm eating sunflowers back? I bought a seed packet of these for this year. And here's the cat. Here's the cat being furious. Now I can replant those exact same sunflowers next year for $0. So that's very useful. And that's true any seed that's an heirloom, which I will get into more detail about that later. But this is a good example of me doing mulch. See how that used to be overrun with grass? Now it's not so. Now it's a lot more manageable. There's still grass in there. But that's what I ultimately want to do with my compost. I just don't get enough of it. Or when I do, for example, like I had 4 beds out here I made. This is why you see the soil a bit lower. It's because of that. So hopefully I can work an angle on that. You also have vermicomposting, which is more of a smaller scale. It's a lot more pricier to set up. I've said I'll get into more detail about that later on. And even with the beekeeping, that's a way to save money because you're not buying honey, but it's this is the most expensive hobby I've ever had. It cost me about $500 for setup, and I might have to get a second hive. I digress. And lastly, if you have pots like I do, what you can do is at the end of the season, like this won't survive winter. It's a summer crop, it doesn't like being frozen. Is I will take the dirt from that pot, flip it into another garden bed, turn that into my topsoil. Not only does that raise up sorry, I lost my train of thought. By me flipping that pot, the soil in that pot, into say this, that raises that level up, then I don't have to buy more dirt for next year. I can let that sit, recharge for the winter, because it's now topsoil. So that's the other option that I use, or the other way I use to save money. Next, last year's pots are becoming this year's topsoil. Hopefully this helps clarify some things. I will get better with the videos as I get more familiar with these, start developing scripts. And something else you have to be careful of having an oak tree. As you can see right in there, there's an oak tree down there. Because I have to have the fun of going in there and fighting to pull up. But the benefits do outweigh the cons. You just have to decide if it's for you. I've always said everyone should have some type of garden, even if it's just a single pot. So hopefully this helps you with some questions. Feel free to leave any questions that you have in the comments, and I'll get back with you. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.